We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football, especially the college football playoff chase. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. I am your host, Greg Pflugar. Again, if you want to subscribe to our channel, smash the subscribe button, smash the like button if you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. If you want to help this channel out with a donation, hit the dollar sign where you make a comment and I'll get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Everybody is welcome into the studio. Even that Sun Devil, James Foster. Even that Sun Devil, James Foster, is welcome into the studio. The Buffalo man himself, Richard L. James Foster and Richard L. They are eyeing each other. They are eyeing each other across the studio. Then they look down, then they look up, they look at each other, then they look down, they're looking up. Could it be? Will it be? Can it possibly be a Sun Devil Buffalo Big 12 championship game? Well, the Kansas Jayhawks are going to have something to say about that because look out, Colorado. Look out, Colorado. Well, anyways, welcome on in. We're gonna I wanted to have, basically from the very start of the show, Open Line Sunday. Open line Sunday. But we've got things we got to talk about. Before we get to your phone calls, I'm going to do all that I can to get to the monologue as fast as I can to open up the phone lines because I want to hear what you guys have to say. The title of the show, the live show on November 17th, the SEC Dream Scenario is alive and kicking. Holy smokes. Earlier in the week, I said the Big 12's nightmare scenario is alive. And it is. It is. It is. But if you're looking at a dream scenario of the SEC, that is alive. The monster is alive. I'm going to get everybody upset with me except for the SEC people, family members of the PATC family. Everybody else is going to get mad at me. The SEC dream scenario is alive. We're going to be going through the games real quick. Then I'm going to be doing my Sunday projections on not what it's going to look like this Tuesday night, but what it's going to end up looking like. That's what I've been doing. I've been doing projections on how I think it's going to end up, not for the next Tuesday playoff selection rankings. And I'm going to tell you something. My projections of November 17th on how it's going to look, there is only two very small changes from what we projected on November 10th. Our projections have been we haven't had to change a lot here at Peek Around the Corner. So far from our initial projections, so far we've been nailing this thing. So we're gonna take a look at it, take a look at our projections. John Till, if Army beats Notre Dame, Colorado could be locked out. Or whoever wins the Big 12 championship game could be locked out. That's why we said earlier in the week that the Big 12 nightmare scenario is alive. It's still alive. We're going to be doing the Army Notre Dame game watch party next Saturday night. Army, Notre Dame. It's going to be a classic. I think it's going to be epic. At least we're going to have some fun watching it. Thank you, John Teal, for your super chat. I appreciate it. James Foster is in the house. Richard L. is in the house. Caleb Ramirez, Mr. Buckeye, 4637 Warrior, present and accounted for. Anthony Carlton, the Spartans, the Lions are 9-1. Go green and go Lions. And the Chicago Bears, 46-yard field goal to defeat the Packers with 3 seconds left to go. The field goal gets blocked. The evil Packers remain just behind the Vikings. The Vikings remain behind the Lions. Ryan Willie, the evil Badger on Wisconsin, is in the house. Nathan is here. PNW Ute. If Colorado gets locked out, Prime's got receipts. Matt Snuck is in the house. If BYU goes down again, it could open the door for Boise State getting a bye. Yes. And it could get even worse for the Big 12. Skull Duckies survive and advance. The Oregon Ducks escape. They escape Madison. There's been plenty of time where I have not been able to escape Madison. So, because Ducks, congratulations. Jay Chapman is in the house. OU donors are preparing a huge NIL money drop. Justin R. Football Wars, the revenge of the Jayhawks. Sean, the Big 12 is in trouble. The Architect crushed after the Bears loss. Then 94 got right in the middle of that line, got penetration, put his arm up. The kick was a little low. The kick was a little low. Crushing loss for the Bears. Larry, the GM, love this topic. Again, the SEC family members of PATC are going to be the only ones happy with me today. The only ones. Mr. Hoosier, Montcastle, the Bears. Okay, so let's get into it. First of all, let's get through this real quick. Did Greg the Gold make an appearance this week? Did I have a winning record against the spread? And if I did, it would only be the second time in 12 weeks, which is horrific on a grand scale. But did I at least have a second winning week? Because I'm only sitting on one thus far. Great, the goal. Did it happen? We only did 8 games. All I had to win was 5 of them. 5. Come on. Break the Gold had to make an appearance this week. It's not difficult. This isn't hard. Come on. Break the Gold. Did it happen? No, it did not. Greg the Cooler seems to have a permanent seat inside the studio that sits in the middle of Loserville City, and I am the mayor. I got Texas wrong. Texas did not cover the spread. The PATC community took Arkansas. You were correct. I was wrong. I took Colorado. So did the PATC community, and Colorado did cover the spread. Nebraska at USC. I took USC. They won by 8. You all took Nebraska. You guys won. I lost. The Baylor at West Virginia. I took Baylor. They covered the spread. The PATC community took West Virginia. You lost. Arizona State at Kansas State. I took Kansas State. I lost. You all took Arizona State. You won. Oregon at Wisconsin. I took Oregon. I lost. You guys took Oregon. You lost. Tennessee at Georgia. I took the Georgia Bulldogs. They won. They won by 14. They covered the spread. You guys took Tennessee. They did not cover the spread. You lost. And then finally, Kansas at BYU. I took Kansas. They covered. You all took BYU. You lost. So, the final outcome of Week 12. Greg the Cooler went 4-4. Again, not a winning week. The PATC community went 4-4. My record after 12 weeks against the spread, I am 53-73. The geniuses in the PATC community is 52-74. I remain with a 1-game lead over the geniuses. But again, we just got done with Week 12. And I've only had one winning week. And I went 6-4 that one winning week. Incredibly bad. Greg the Gold is nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. Okay. You are a winner amongst us losers, Greg. The one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind, or whatever that saying is. Whatever that saying is. What's up, y'all? SEC fan here, Don Scruggs. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Here we go. Here we go.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
The SEC dream scenario is alive. It is kicking. We're going to go through that in a moment. But first, we're going to quickly go through the results of this Saturday. Notre Dame wins big, 35-14. SMU 10-point victory over Boston College. This is the ACC. We're doing the ACC first. Stanford wins a crazy game against Louisville. The end of that game was outrageous. Louisville had a 57-yard field goal, but Louisville was offsides. Stanford kicked a 52-yard field goal to win the game, but it was crazy even before then. Clemson 24, Pittsburgh 0, Syracuse 33, California 25. Syracuse is going to give the Hurricanes a fight at the end of the season. Miami's still going to have to beat the Orange. North Carolina 31. Wake Forest 24. Let's move on. We're just going to go through this real quick. The Big 12. On that Friday night, if you remember, Arizona 27, Houston 3. Kansas defeats BYU 17-3. It was a pooch kick. The quarterback pooched the punt. They lined up to try to potentially go for it, but they did the punt, and it hit a BYU defender who was covering a wide receiver, but it was a punt play, and Kansas was able to recover the fumble and punch it in and then survive a last drive from BYU. 17-3 Jayhawks. The BYU Cougars having a great season, epic season, a special team in Provo, but they got the loss 17-3. Arizona State 24-14. Now, Arizona State is setting themselves up to have a Big 12 championship game versus Colorado. However, Arizona State's got to play BYU next week. And Colorado has to play the Jayhawks next week. We're going to be talking about that. Colorado 49, Utah 24, Baylor. Dave Aranda is coming back next year. The Baylor Bears are going to a bowl game. 49-35. West Virginia needs one more win to become bowl eligible. Iowa State 34, Cincinnati 17. The Bearcats need one more win to become bowl eligible. We are going to the Big Ten next. That Friday night, we did a watch party. Washington 31, UCLA 19. Oregon survives Madison 16-13. Some controversy on the chop block call. Some controversy. Was it really a chop block? Oregon 16, Wisconsin 13. The Oregon Ducks remain number one in the AP poll that just came out. We'll get through that later on in the monologue. The Buckeyes 31, Northwestern 7. Penn State rolls over Purdue. Illinois rolls over Michigan State. USC survives Nebraska 28-20. Rutgers 31, Maryland 17. Rutgers becomes bowl eligible. And then finally, the SEC. Texas 20, Arkansas 10, Georgia. We did a watch party last night. A lot of people came in. We had a great time. Carson Beck woke up. Carson Beck woke up, and he was phenomenal in the second half. A dart here, a dart there, here a dart, there darts. Darts were being thrown all over the place by Carson Beck. The Bulldogs finally woke up, 31-17. I have pregame all week, the last 3 weeks. I've got serious doubts on the Volunteers. 31-17 Georgia. Bama rolls, Texas A&M rolls. The Gamecocks win a tight one, 34-30 over Missouri. South Carolina is going to go to a major bowl. The Gamecocks win by 4. Florida beats LSU 27-16. We talked about it last night. I watched a, what's the name of that podcast? I watched an LSU podcast early this morning. Holy smokes. Let me tell you the name of it. There is 1,000 of them out there. Power Hour LSU with Carter the Power. Does a good job. Very emotional. Not happy. Not happy with LSU. Not happy with Brian Kelly. Let's put it that way. We're going to be talking about it more on this show, more during the week. This is the least physical LSU Tiger team that I've seen in a very long time. They cannot hold up physically with anybody. Auburn, 48. Monroe, 14. Kentucky, 48. Murray State, 6. And then, Army, Boise State. Boise State beat San Jose State. Blew them out at the end. Army versus Notre Dame next Saturday night. We're going to be doing a watch party on that game. Buckle up, brace for impact. I hope you join us. We're going to be talking about more about that game later in the week. Now, next, we're going to go through my projections. There is not much of a change. Not much of a change. I think you guys can see our projections of a couple weeks ago are holding up pretty good. Ryan Willie, this evil Badger, is bleeped. Fickle says they need to get better running the offense. Then why doesn't he motivate his bleeping team? Ryan Willie is very upset. Now, a lot of good things came out of that game. I mean, the Badgers' defense was terrific. The tackling in open space, fantastic. Fantastic. And, of course, you got to remember now, the Badgers aren't going through this season with their QB1, right? They're just not. This was Braden Locke's first year starter of Wisconsin. I don't think he's going to be the starter next year. But you got it. I'm not trying to give Fickle a complete and total pass. But you did have some injuries. You did have some injuries. Thank you, Ryan Willie. I'm just trying to talk you off the ledge. I'm just trying to talk you off the ledge. Thank you so much for your generosity. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Okay. Let's go to PATC's projections. Again, there's hardly a change in this. November 17th, 2024 playoff projections. But remember, this is not my projections on what it's going to look like Tuesday I will let everybody else do that. These are my projections on what I think it's going to end up being. Not much of a change here. Projections on November 10th, last week, and the excuse me. And then I'm going to show you the projections, PATC projections of today. Last week we had the Buckeyes, number 1. The week before that, we had the Buckeyes, number 1. Now, today we have the Buckeyes, number 1. We think the Buckeyes are going to beat the Ducks and in the Big Ten championship game and have the number 1 seed. They're not going to have the number 1 seed Tuesday. Again, we do final projections on the final playoff bracket. Number 2, Texas. Last week, we have Texas this week. We did have Georgia being number 2 on November 3rd. That's the one change. Miami. We believe Miami is going to end up winning the ACC championship game. They do have some hurdles in front of them, including the Syracuse Orange. And then they're going to have to play SMU probably in the ACC championship game. Miami does have some adversity staring them right in the face. We have them projected prevailing. Number 3, Miami. Number 4, Colorado. We had Colorado on November 3rd. We had Colorado on November 10th. Today we have Colorado. That has not changed. Now again, they're going to play a Kansas Jayhawk team that is very, very game. And it's going to be at Lawrence, Kansas. I'm telling you. Colorado of this morning is only a minus a 1.5 favorite. The Big 12 nightmare scenario is still alive. And I'm not talking about the nightmare scenario where they don't get a 4th seed. I'm talking about the nightmare scenario in which there's no Big 12 teams playing in the college football playoffs for 2024. That's the nightmare scenario we're talking about. We talked about it earlier in the week. It's still alive. It's more alive now than ever. But then again, look, every Big 12 fan is going to be rooting for the Irish to beat Army on Saturday night. You need Army to lose that game. Okay, so if you look, PATC's projections have not changed. And again, and I'm not sure why this is not working. Our other projections haven't changed. Oregon, we've had them on November 3rd. We had them the fifth seed. On November 10th, we had them the 5th seed. And today, we have the Ducks, the number 5th seed. We think they're going to lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Penn State, we have them number 6. We still have them number 6. Now, I got to tell you, there is some Notre Dame fans that believe they should be ahead of Penn State, will be ahead of Penn State when it's all said and done. They could be right, but we've got the Nittany Lions hanging on to that 6th seed. Notre Dame, we had them 7th. We have the Irish number 7. Last week, we had Alabama number 8. This week, we have Alabama number 8. Last week, we had Ole Miss number 9. This week, we have Ole Miss number 9. Now, this is a change. Last week, we had Indiana number 10. Georgia is number 10 this week. Last week, we had Georgia 11, Indiana 11. So, we are projecting that Indiana is going to lose to the Buckeyes, but give them a good enough game where the Hoosiers still make the playoffs at 11-1. That is our final projections that we have Indiana. Today, November 17th. That is the only change. The only change in our complete projections from this week the last week. And we got Boise State remaining the 12th seed. So we've got Boise State. We've got Colorado defeating Arizona State or BYU in the Big 12 championship game. And we've got Colorado by a hair, by a sliver, having the 4th seed over Boise State. But baby, it's going to be close. It's going to be close. It's going to be highly debated. It's going to be controversial no matter which way it goes. But that's what we have it. That's what we have in our projections. So, in other words, so then we're going to have Oregon versus Boise State, Penn State, Indiana, Notre Dame at home against Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss. So that is what we have here for our projections. Again, let me know how wrong we got it once again. Clinton Moses, the Sun Devils. So no Tennessee, nope. I haven't had Tennessee in there. We had Tennessee losing to Georgia. I think Tennessee is either going to lose to Vanderbilt or it's not going to be very impressive. I think Tennessee is slipping and sliding and they're going to slip their way on out of here. That is how I got it projected, and I've had it projected that way. If you watch Tennessee, that old line is below average. Dylan Sampson, the tough running back, gets nothing from that offensive line. Dylan Sampson has to create everything for himself. Nico has to run away from the rush almost every time. No, I think Tennessee is going to be basically the first one out. But, and I haven't had BYU in the projections for a while. But, these are my projections, right? What did the AP poll have? Tennessee number 10? The playoff selection committee has been, the playoff selection committee has been so far real close to what the AP has. The SEC dream is alive. If Indiana gets their doors blown off, if Notre Dame loses, if Penn State lose to my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers, there is scenarios out there where the SEC is alive and kicking for 5 teams to get into the playoffs. And most of the SEC fans would tell you right now, there should be 5 going in right now, projected. I don't quite have that. I don't have Tennessee. I have them on the outside looking in. But I am not, look, the SEC, that scenario is definitely, most definitely alive. But again, there is this thing called the eye test. Now people say, you can't do the eye test. You have to do the eye test. It has to be part of it. It has to be part of it. Because what happens, what always happens when people are trying to slice and dice these resumes and these schedules is that basically nobody has good wins. That's where we end up with. Like, nobody has good wins. Because there's only a couple really good teams, supposedly. And, of course, they haven't lost, or they've only have one loss. So nobody else can have a good win. That is where we end. We always end up to that end point. The eye test has to be part of it. To me, Tennessee does not pass the eye test. They don't. There are other teams out there that don't quite pass the eye test. LSU, early, a couple of weeks ago, before they lost these last couple of games, I did not think they passed the eye test. Antoine Coates, thank you for being a member for 4 months. Holy smokes. If all you need is one tough game and a bunch of cupcakes like Boise State, Army, and other G5 teams, what benefit is this playoff for the Big 12? Arizona State, thank you for becoming a member for the 4th month, Antoine Coates. Thank you for your generosity. Holy smokes. Now, as I say this, sometimes, and this is not a cut down, Antoine Coates, it's not a cut down, but that sentiment that you just put there, we just put there on the comments, that's the sentiment that the SEC and the Big Ten has for Big 12 and the ACC. That is how they look at it. And that's how you look at it compared to the G5. G5 is going to have a pathway into the playoffs because nobody wants to get sued. And I think it's a healthy thing for college football. I think it's a healthy thing that those G5 have a pathway, more eyeballs. There's more eyeballs on G5 football this year than any other year previous. And that's a good thing. Those student athletes are going to go in the portal. They're going to go up and play for Arizona State. They're going to go up and play for BYU. They're going to go up and play for West Virginia. They're going to go up and play for Wake Forest, for Miami. They're going to go to the Big Ten, to the SEC. They get more eyeballs on those student athletes. They move up. The G5 programs get the playoff money. More playoff money in this situation than they would if they just had their own playoff. And they might create some other lower tier G5 playoffs in the bowl system in the years ahead. We don't know that, but that is a possibility. Boise State, Ashton Jeanty, the great running back, the only lost to Oregon by 3 points. They're going to have to play a very tough Colorado State team in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. Army's going to be playing if Army beats Notre Dame, and if Army goes and beats Tulane, yeah, they definitely should be, well, at least one of those teams is going to make the playoffs, and the other one should be heavily, heavily, heavily considered. I understand your sentiment, Antoine Coates. Okay. Is this the CFP or the Big Ten SEC Invitational? Thank you for the super chat, Antoine Coates. It's the college football playoffs. College football playoffs. But how many teams do you think the Big 12 should have in there? It's tough. It's the Colorado Buffaloes, who are playing very good football, got beat pretty bad by Nebraska. It's tough. It's gonna be almost impossible for the Big 12 to get 2 teams in. That's just how it's playing out this year. And then that's another. Thank you so much, Antoine Coles, for your super chat. I do appreciate it so very much. Appreciate your generosity, helping us keep the lights on. And then we got Ryan Brooks, who's going to be bringing up this controversial. Bama is projected to go to the SEC championship game. A loss could get Tennessee in. What are you going to do? What is the playoff committee going to do with an SEC team losing in the SEC championship game, receiving their third loss. I don't think they're going to get kicked out of the playoffs. I don't think they're going to punish them. I think they're going to punish a BYU team with a second loss in the Big 12 if they lose the Big 12 championship game, or an Arizona State or Colorado. I don't think they're going to punish Oregon, for example. If Oregon loses to Ohio State, I think Oregon's going to get the 5th seed. If the Buckeyes lose to Oregon, I think the Buckeyes are still going to get a home game in the first round. And I think so. There is a if it's not Texas losing their second game in the SEC championship game, if Texas beats Texas A&M, goes to the SEC championship game, loses their second loss, if it ain't Texas losing their second game, it will be an SEC team losing the SEC championship game, having their third loss. And whoever loses in the SEC championship game is not going to be thrown out of the playoffs, in my opinion. So, in other words, the chances are very high on November 17th that we are going to have at least one, we're going to have one 3-loss team in the playoffs. It's going to be an SEC team. The odds are in favor of that. Still, Austin, Colorado's the only Big 12 team that passes the eye test. They're playing really good right now, man. They're playing really good. I'm sorry. Shedeur Sanders over 300 yards once again. Okay, we are going to open up the phone lines right now. One other piece of information. We went over a little bit last night during the Georgia-Tennessee watch party. There was breaking news on Warner Brothers Discovery. Settled a breach of contract lawsuit against the National Basketball Association, the NBA. I will provide a link in the description box after the live show. You can watch it. But basically, the Inside the NBA is going to ESPN and ABC starting next season. That's the show with Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal. So during this negotiated settlement, during the negotiated settlement, we've learned that there's going to be Big 12 football and basketball games on TNT and Max. They're going to be sub-licensed to Warner Brothers Discovery, TNT, and Max. They're both under the Warner Brothers Discovery umbrella. Basketball games and football games. Now, I've been asked, what do you think the impact of this to the Big 12? Not having some of their Big 12 games on ESPN, having it move to TNT and Max. I do not know. I really do not know. My first question is, how many football games are actually going to be sub-licensed? How many games are going to be moved? Now, I think this is a really good deal for Warner Brothers Discovery. I think this is a really good deal for their platform, TNT. Remember, TNT is going to get sub-licensed college football playoff games during this 5-6 year media deal with ESPN. And so I think it's good that during the year, you're going to have college football product on TNT. I think it's good for, I think it's really good for, I think it's a great deal for TNT. How good of a deal for is it for the Big 12? I don't know how many games are going to go on there. I don't know how many basketball games are going to go on there. I don't know the production value. I can tell you as a Big Ten fan, not a Big Ten fan, a Golden Gopher fan, who's watched Minnesota on NBC, who's watched other Big Ten games on NBC. NBC is paying the Big Ten a lot of money, but I am very underwhelmed with NBC's production value. Very underwhelmed by the coverage. The money, it's big money. But the production value, when I'm watching a Big Ten game on NBC, it doesn't match up with CBS. It does not match up with Fox. It does not match up with ABC. It does not match up with ESPN. It is not on that level. So, look, if a Big 12 football game is sub-licensed to TNT and I'm watching it and it's good, all right. But that is unknowable, right? We don't know that. But we don't know if it's going to be any good or not. But it's good news. It's good news for TNT. They have some college football content prior to having playoff games, right? Hold on for just one moment here. I got to clean something up. And then we're going to open up your phone lines. I just wanted to hit that story before we get to your phone lines. Your calls, you can talk about anything you want in college football. You can talk about the AP poll that just came out today. We're going to be showing that up on the screen here in a moment. You can talk about what are your projections. What do you think is going to happen? Is the dream dead in Provo, or is it just adversity that BYU is going to have to overcome? What about the Oregon Ducks? Should the Duck fans be a little worried? 16-13 win at Wisconsin. The Buckeyes, for me, will continue to be my projected number one team. Number one team. Okay, we're going to open up the phone lines. Let me know what you're thinking. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. We also have a couple news items here. Julian Lewis, the number 2 player in the class of 2025, has decommitted from USC. He visited Georgia yesterday. Colorado recently has expressed some interest in Indiana.
Call from.
I'm sorry, I did not get the name.
BJ.
BJ, the floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, as always, thanks for allowing me to speak on your platform. I was going to talk about something, but you brought up the deal, the TNT deal. I think if you read the details of that case, it is fascinating, right? TNT was supposed to have the right of first refusal. There was a deadline. Apparently, the deadline was missed from from the NBA side. Warner Brothers said no. But the interesting thing, the two key points about that is the production is still going to be a TNT production, right? However, it's going to be on ESPN. So that is unique. I've never kind of seen a situation like that before. And also,
okay,
you're marketing, you're promoting games that are not on your channel, right? So so the TNT crew is going to produce games and produce a show, rather, not the game, but the show. But the game itself will be on a non-TNT station, which I'm curious to see how that turns out. And on the back end of that, basically they just moved the Big 12 games off the network, right? And I'm curious to see what I was thinking, like what went into that conversation on which products to move off. They could have moved the ACC off, right? They could have moved, the Big 12 off. They're not going to move the SEC games off for sure. But when I look at the numbers, the Big 12 has done really good numbers this year being on ESPN. Like they've done way better than they did last year, and I think because of the visibility and the reach of ESPN, I know for a fact that TNT won't have that reach, but and it seems like the talent isn't there. When I watch the NBC games, the talent isn't there for me. The on-air talent just isn't there. Colt McCoy is good, but he's just unseasoned to me, and he's fairly new to broadcasting. So I'm curious to see what talent they're going to bring over to TNT to do those games. Does that make sense, Greg?
Yeah.
And I'll just say this, and then I'll get off your phone. There's a couple things. I was ridiculed earlier this year of my opinions of how I thought ESPN operates as it pertains to the ACC and the Big 12. The ACC folks know how when the rubber hits the road, ESPN is gonna allow the SEC to kind of use their platform as propaganda. That's a fact. They've done it for so many years. As a Florida State fan, I'm used to it, right? But the interesting thing about this new conundrum, they're attacking Big Ten teams. Like I've seen talking heads on ESPN downplay Indiana, downplay Penn State, and I don't think that's going to bode well, because if you know the business of college football, the Big Ten by far has the better value. They bring the most eyes, the biggest alumni base, and pissing off the Big Ten is not going to bode well for the next negotiation. Because I think the Big Ten has been playing fairly. They haven't been as mean as a lot of the SEC folks. But if you kick out an 11-1 Indiana team or an 11-1 Penn State team for Ole Miss or Tennessee or a team like that, I don't think it's going to end well, and I think it's going to cause more issues than not. And as it pertains to the ACC and the Big 12, I infamously call it the G7, and I got ridiculed for it. But I think they're a one-bid league. Both leagues are one-bid league. And if somehow Army finds an opportunity to beat Notre Dame, it'll get scary for the Big 12 in terms of their access this year into the tournament, because if you go to the CPF website, it says the 5 highest ranked conference champions, and Army, Boise, Miami, and the Big 12 and Big 10 and SEC teams will be ranked higher. Yeah. And I don't know whether I agree with that, because I think the Big 12 does play competitive ball and they need access. I think it's good for college football for a Big 12 team to be in there. But just because of the rules that was written, and mind you, the Big 12 agreed to it. They agreed to it. It won't look good for them. But I'm curious to hear your opinion on that, Greg. Thank you.
All righty. Appreciate the call, man. Well, we've been talking about this. Great call, BJ. We've been talking about this Big 12 nightmare scenario. We did a live show last week on it. It's been out there. Of course, if Notre Dame beats Army, then the Big 12 is going to be okay. They might not get that 4th spot. I think they will, but it's going to be close. If Boise State runs the table, the nightmare scenario is definitely out there. First of all, I have listened. We've done shows on this as well. The Penn State Indiana thing. Okay, that's fine. I don't. I mean, I in my opinion, which is just my opinion, Indiana, Ohio State next Saturday. Indiana's going to play some very good football because they are a very good football team. They're going to play good. It's going to be a good competitive game. And then I think after that game, I think most people are going to say Indiana, yeah, they're a playoff team. Now you can question them. That's fine. But I always go back to this. What they have done, even against mediocre competition, they have blown the doors off that. Georgia basically had the same resume as Indiana has this year. Georgia had the same last year. I compared the numbers, strength of schedule, margin of victory. Indiana even had a little bit of an edge and strength of schedule, margin of victory, not being behind in any of their games. And yet Georgia was number 2 in the country last year at the same time, and nobody bitched about it. Nobody questioned it. But Indiana has done the exact same thing as Georgia did last year. And suddenly, because Indiana, why? They don't have a Georgia emblem on their head. They're not as, suddenly Indiana is not, whatever. I think Indiana is going to play like they've been playing all year against the Buckeyes. You're going to see Warwick be very efficient with the football. You're going to be seeing Ellison run. Sarek is going to get wide open. They're going to make big plays. The Buckeyes are going to make big plays. It's going to be a great game. After the game, I project that no one's going to be questioning why Indiana is going to be one of the. Now, if Indiana gets blown out the door, okay, then Indiana has missed their opportunity. But I don't think that's going to happen. And Penn State lost to Ohio State by 7 points. Tyler Warren probably should be mentioned at some point for a Heisman candidate. Unbelievable tight end. Unbelievable season. Abdul Carter. They've got great players all over Penn State. So they're going to be fine. They're going to blow the doors off my Gophers. They're going to go 11-1. They're going to get to the playoffs. That's just the way it is. So, Edward, the Auburn Tiger, the SEC brings the most eyeballs to the TV ratings. Yes. But I have to point this out because this is what we do here. College Football Peek Around the Corner. And I'm going to say this as politely as I can say it. Viewership, the SEC is the most valuable conference in the country. The best football conference in the country. But the Big Ten, their markets, their viewership brings more money to the products and services that the national advertisers sell. That's why Big Ten makes so much money. They don't need the viewership number. Viewership number is just one component. There are other components. Okay.
From
Rick?
Rick,
the floor is yours. Thanks for calling.
Well, thank you. Kind of a question for you regarding the SEC Big Ten scheduling for the future.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll find more about that later. We'll see if it happens. Go ahead, sir.
Do you think it's imminent?
I don't know.
What would prohibit it?
What was that?
What would prohibit it? What would stop it from happening?
Well, I tell you what would if ESPN and Fox weren't willing to pay more money.
Well, how about somebody else?
Well, that can't happen because they both have deals with ESPN and Fox. That can't happen for another 5 years for the Big Ten. Those games are already bought. Those games are already ESPN and Fox, CBS, NBC, Peacock. They already have distribution deals with the Big Ten and the SEC for the next 5-6 years.
Even for the out-of-conference games?
Sure, yeah. Any home game that the SEC teams have, any home games that the Big Ten have. So, no, I don't think that scheduling deal is, imminent. I mean, could they be announcing something in the next month? Sure. I don't think it's a fait accompli. I think ESPN and Fox are going to have to pay more money, and the Big Ten and the SEC are going to have to. Again, going back to this simple math. If the Big Ten and the SEC play each other more often, and if they play each other, that SEC Big Ten universe, they're going to accumulate more losses. This show is titled "The SEC Dream Scenario is Alive and Kicking." So SEC fans are going to be happy with me today. But this is one thing you're not going to be happy when I say this. The SEC universe benefits greatly from only having 8 conference games. Simple math. If you had a 9th conference game, SEC teams would have more losses. And it would affect somewhat the top SEC teams. I know you got the best conference in the country. I know you already got the hardest schedule, blah, 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 blah. I'm just telling you, if you had a night, having only 8 conference games, compared to the Big Ten having 9, that helps the SEC greatly in trying to get a 5th team in the playoffs. Go ahead, Rick.
But the playoff committee factors that in. That's part of their decision making, right?
Sure, but you can go if you can go play a Mercer in week 11, week 12. My goodness, your team is more fresh for the end. It still benefits the SEC programs.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that the playoff committee would factor that in somewhat.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
And then the next part was the talk about adding the playoff games within the conference, adding the additional games. That would be something that they could sell to somebody other than Fox and ESPN, right?
Well, I'm not sure. It could be an additional game, but I've never heard of it being an additional game. I've heard it being the last conference game, a non-scheduled conference game at the end of the season, a flex game. That whole last weekend would be a flex weekend in which 1 would play 4, 2 would play 3. But
that would be part of the 12.
Yes. Now, if there was an added game, that's kind of tough. I mean, you're going to have to pay these players then. It's just, so it might not be an added game. So there might not, but the games are still going to be more valuable. So you're going to be able to squeeze out more money from your media partner. In fact, we know at least one conference out there has had deep discussions with their media partner in a flex weekend, semifinal weekend, and they would get a certain dollar figure for both semifinal games that might be it might create enough incentive for this thing to happen. But it's not an added game.
Okay, and that could really occur in any conference.
Yes. Yes, it could. But, you know, there's logistical hurdles to it. I talked about it. You've got to be able to have if you are, for example, I'm just going to give this example. If you're a Big 12 school, if you're Kansas, you're the Kansas Jayhawks. You put together your football schedule. You throw out 8 conference games. And your 9th conference game, quote unquote, is the flex weekend, the last weekend of the season. You don't know who you're playing in that 9th game, but the other 8 games, you know who you're playing. And those 8 games are home and away game, right? You know which one you're going home, which one away. But that 9th game, the flex weekend, you got to know if it's a home game or an away game. These programs don't want to give up their 7th home game. They want to have 7 home games, 5 road games. So to be able to have this flex weekend and have a semifinal weekend, it's a lot easier because of the home and away issue. Is if you put these schools into pods, into 4 pods, because then you can rotate the home and away weekend semifinal games based upon pods, like Pod A, Pod B, Pod C, Pod D. Pod A and Pod B can have home games on even years, road games on odd years for the semifinal games. Something like that. There's logistical issues. There's a lot of issues to all this, but we know there have been deep discussions. But go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I would think another option might be to have 4 home, 4 away, and 1 neutral site for every team in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
So that everybody has to play a conference game at a neutral site.
Yeah.
That way it would always be even. Okay, thanks for taking the call.
You got it. Appreciate it. Great call. Okay, phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Give us a call. Give us a call. Larry the GM, who's better, South Carolina or Indiana? I don't know. But, you know, again, South Carolina lost to LSU. LSU lost to USC. USC has been beaten by Minnesota, Maryland, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you something. Indiana would not have lost to LSU. Now, that game, I think, was stolen from the Gamecocks. I think it was stolen. I think that was the worst referee. I think that call, God, that was unbelievably bad. I went through it before. Again, you know, Larry the GM and everybody else in SEC country, when you're looking at other teams, look at your own team. That's what ESPN never really truly analyzes SEC teams. They just, Indiana hasn't done this. Penn State hasn't done this. Look at Texas, Larry the GM. What is Texas' biggest win? I think they passed the eye test. Well, guess what? I think Indiana has passed. How many SEC teams would have had Indiana scheduled and beaten those teams like Indiana has? How many? Truly. So again, it's Look, this is supposed to be a pro SEC live show. The dream is still alive. The scenario out there, dream scenario out there is still alive. But let's pull back on this thought that the SEC is so dramatically better than everybody else. They're not. Not this year. Not this year. No way. No way. You can see it. In fact, boy, all I know is I think there's a very good chance that Indiana is going to play a good game against the Buckeyes, get in the playoffs, and then they're going to be playing an SEC team in the playoffs. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I think a lot of you haven't watched Indiana a lick this year. Watch that offense. Watch that defense. Watch that secondary. It's not a fluke. Absolutely not a fluke.
Call from
Evil Badger.
Evil Badger is on the line. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet. Appreciate it.
So, with the ESPN and the SEC basically controlling everything, they're going to be biased towards the SEC teams, and any team that isn't in the SEC is just not going to compare to the SEC. And I'm like, I can't wait till if they get the deal done between the Big Ten and SEC scheduling agreement, just to see who is actually the best conference in the country.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
ESPN.
I think a lot of people are hoping for that.
And I would love to see the ESPN talking heads shut the heck up.
Yep. Are you feeling better about yesterday's game?
Oh, no. Fickle talks in cliches, saying that they just had to get better at this and that, and it doesn't seem like they're motivated enough to actually compete to win. And Alvarez is losing his patience with Fickle. And I'm hoping that Alvarez put the bug in the ear of McIntosh to get rid of Fickle.
Yep. All right. Well, Fickle's going to get a third year, so he's coming back next year. He's coming back next year. He's what? What is his record? 12-11, right? 12-11. Matt Rule
pretty much
right
500
now is 10-13.
We finished 7-10, 7-6 last year, with even with a bowl.
Yeah, so he's okay.
And they're 5-5 this year, so they're 12-11. 12-11.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, then I don't know if they even deserve a bowl.
Well, they're going to have to beat either Nebraska or Minnesota to get it to a bowl game.
Right.
I think they got a pretty good chance against both. I think they got a good 60% chance against both those teams. 6 out of 10 times, I think you'd win. So I think you're going to get one of those at least. In my opinion.
But the fan base around here is not happy with Fickle.
I can understand that. It was a great atmosphere last night. Badgers did give us great entertainment last night. Their defense was tough. They gave Oregon a tough game.
Well, there's no such thing as a moral victory.
Okay. All right. You're a true Badger fan. Ryan.
Yes, I am.
You are. You're true. You had high expectations. Boy,
Hey, I went through the Morton years
Yeah.
before Alvarez got there, and they couldn't get fans in the stands at all.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man.
So that's all I got.
All right. Appreciate it, Ryan Willie.
Right.
Great call,
All right.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
man.
right. Bye.
To be fair, Wisconsin showed some fight last night. I thought Oregon would steamroll them. The evil Badger wants Fickle's head to roll. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I see a recurring theme. Everyone hates their head coach. Yep. I don't think TNT and True Sports are going to be the main network for the Big 12. I think they're just going to get some games, and it might help out the Big 12. It might help out their exposure. I don't know. A game on TNT instead of ESPN2? I don't know. We're going to find out. Indiana beat Michigan at 5 at home. Yeah, that was Indiana's one tough adversity game thus far. And your beloved Longhorns beat Vanderbilt by 3. You only beat Arkansas by 10. I think Indiana would have routed the Razorback. We can go do this all. Larry the GM, I'm telling you, the Hoosiers, I hope you watch that game. We're going to be doing a watch party. Indiana and Ohio State, 12 noon. Then we're going to be coming back at night doing Notre Dame and Army. I hope you all join us. 10 SEC teams would not have dominated Indiana's schedule. I completely disagree with you, Edward. I love you, man, but no way. No, absolute no way. I mean, you got Tennessee, you got Tennessee looking like crap against Kentucky. That's just not reality. I don't think a lot of you have watched any Indiana games at all. In fact, I would bet my money on it. I think you're just looking at the name Indiana, looking at their schedule. I don't think you guys know that Curtis Rourke is an NFL quarterback. I don't think you guys have seen how efficient that machine is. And then if they play a really good game against the Buckeyes, you're all going to say, well, the Buckeyes aren't any that good. The Buckeyes would be 5-6 in the SEC and PNW Ute. We Utes would take an immoral victory about now. Thank you for the super chat, PNW Ute. Appreciate it. Well, then Larry the GM, then Georgia should not have been ranked number 2 in the country last year after week 10 and 11 because they had a lower scheduled strength of scheduled record versus Indiana, and their margin of victory was lower than Indiana. You can't have it both ways. You cannot have it. You can't have where Georgia is blowing people out with a very weak schedule last year, and they're rated number 2 in the country, and nobody says a word. Indiana does it this year, and suddenly, not Indiana, because they're Indiana. It doesn't work. Not for me, it doesn't work. You'll see Indiana next week, and then you're going to be seeing Indiana in the playoffs, and you make sure you call here, the GM. I love your phone calls. You make sure you call after you watch Indiana in the playoffs against an SEC team. Win or lose, you let me know how bad they are. Holy smokes. Watch Indiana play. Actually watch them play. My goodness. Give us a call, 763-260-1333.
Call from
Ryan Brooks.
Ryan Brooks, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Hope you're doing well.
Doing good. How you doing, sir?
Been a rough couple of days in LSU Fansville here.
Yeah. I watched the podcast this morning. There's a lot of discontent down there. Go ahead, sir.
It is. So I will probably tell you that I'm one of the few SEC fans who have seen Indiana play, and Indiana does pass the eye test.
Yeah.
I really think they do, but again, they have to look good. They can't get the doors blown off of them against Ohio State.
Yep, you are correct. I agree with you, sir. Yep.
Now, here's where we're going to disagree, though. Bama, I think they've done all the calculations on tiebreakers, and Bama gets in by strength of, or by winning percentage of conference opponents. So Bama's going to get to the SEC championship game, assuming they get by Auburn.
Okay.
A third loss by Bama has to eliminate them because they're going to have one more, and Tennessee head-to-head will have the win. But if it doesn't, then you can't punish the Ohio State-Oregon loser. Whatever the rankings going into that week would have to remain the same as well, because you can't not punish Alabama, but then punish Ohio State.
I see what you're saying.
And here's something to really make you go, A&M controls its own destiny and can make the playoffs just by winning out.
Yes.
And what does
that is
and what
true.
Does Texas could be number 2, or Texas could miss the playoffs. Alabama could be number 2, or Alabama misses the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The tiebreakers is a mess. The SEC needs Notre Dame to lose. I tend to root for Boise out of conference, so for that sake, I want Notre Dame to lose to USC. Otherwise, an undefeated Army has a strong case over Boise, and between the two of them could have a strong case over that extra SEC team.
Yeah.
So the SEC needs Notre Dame to lose, and that's the only thing stopping them from the 15 minutes.
Yeah, that is interesting. The Alabama situation. If Alabama loses, I hear everything else you're saying, but you got my brain. You got my brain smoking on this Alabama take. Alabama goes to the SEC championship game, and they lose, let's say, to Texas. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
How do you treat Alabama versus Tennessee? Let's say Tennessee defeats Vanderbilt. Alabama's
so
10-3.
That's another data point.
Alabama's 10-3. Tennessee's 10-2. Tennessee defeated Alabama. Jeez.
If Tennessee beats Vandy and beats them convincingly, that's another data point that pushes Bama out and Tennessee in.
Woo! You are either on something or onto something, but I think you're onto something, sir.
Well, now here's something else. I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not all the way there yet.
Yeah.
I don't think there's, what's the right word, collusion or what? I'm not sure the right word, but I think this year, particularly in the Big Ten, there is a formula now to maximize your teams getting in. You can set the schedule up to where your best team doesn't play but any more than one or two. Georgia had the misfortune of having to go through, 4 of the teams that's in the end. Ohio State had to go through 3. But I could see it in the future to where you're like, hey, let's only give one tough game, maybe 2, and we'll get a whole bunch of 10-2 teams in there. Am I crazy for that?
I think you're a little crazy because we really don't know for sure who's going to be the great teams every year. You know, I mean, like Indiana this year, right? They're very good. They're a very good football team. Maybe they're not a playoff team, but they're very good playoff. They're very good, and they avoided a lot of teams just by happenstance. But they're very good. I think in the SEC, here in the Big 12, right? BYU predicted to come in 12th. Arizona State predicted to come in what? 13th, 14th. Colorado. I mean, I think it's. I think maybe they'll try to do that in the future, but I think it's just too hard because I think there's just too many surprises, especially when it comes to the expanded.
Could they not do that to their big brands?
Huh?
Could they not do that to Could they do that to the big brands? Could they give that benefit of the doubt to the Oregon, to Ohio State every year, to Alabama, to Georgia? Give them the benefit of the doubt of an easier schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't predict Indiana being good or BYU being good, but you can predict Ohio State and the big brand names.
Yeah. But even then, you're gonna have the big brand slip once in a while. But yeah,
I did have another take here. Is if I remember one of your earlier episodes, you were really, really big on SMU.
Yeah.
But then you backed off of it and went to North Carolina State.
Because I'm a moron.
Right take, and then you lost it.
Because I'm a moron. That's why. Because I'm an idiot. The very first projection I had SMU as my surprise team in the playoffs. But because I'm a moron, I had to switch it up. And I had to fall in love with North Carolina State. I was hoping everyone would forget, but you did not forget, did you? You did not forget.
I did not, because I also do a pool in the office, and I kind of, when you backed off of them, I kind of backed off of them too. And I tell you what, don't hang your head about have a bad record against the spread, because we play straight up, and we're still only about 60.
Yeah. Hello, I think I lost you. Hello.
You there? I'm sorry.
Yep. I lost you. But go ahead.
So we play a straight up pick 'em in the office, and there's there's weeks that 500 is good out of 15 games, and so against the spread, that's nothing too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, but then I thought SMU's quarterback would be Preston Stone all year. I didn't think this Jennings. I knew he was QB2. I knew he was their future. I did not think that the head coach was going to be brave enough to put Jennings in as the starting quarterback like halfway through the first or second game of the season. That was a brilliant coaching move. And I did not expect any of that to happen. But yeah, SMU's schedule played out perfectly. RJ Maryland, the great tight end, he got injured this year. He's out. They're still doing it without their great tight end. So, but yeah, I should have kept that in there. But I'm an idiot, so.
Getting back to LSU, the one thing I get upset with is your record is not what you are. Because LSU is a very, very, very talented team. They probably have the second best tight end, Harold Perkins, who is out on injury. They've got a lot of talented individual players, and you can look in the NFL to back that up. But they can't bring it together, and that has to be coaching.
Yeah.
And
they haven't had they did not have a physical running game. They couldn't run the ball when they needed to this year as well.
Well, they didn't try to against USC, and that hurt them.
Yeah.
But the Florida game, they seemed obsessed with running.
Yeah.
Which is if you're the lesser team trying to control the clock and get the game, fewer possessions. But against Florida, who I thought was inferior, You don't want fewer possessions. You want more.
Yeah.
And they had 2 drives that were 7 and 8 minutes that got field goals.
Yeah.
And because they ran it right down there, and I said that, they're dominating everywhere except the scoreboard, and that usually has the another team come back and pass you up.
Yeah.
But I tell you, they have a good class coming in. Firing the coach could hurt the incoming recruiting class, but he is not a very popular person in Baton Rouge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's going to cost, after this month, November of 2024, his buyout, I believe, for Brian Kelly is a little bit more than $50 million. Is that what you've heard?
That's the number that I've seen around there as well.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I know we have boosters, but one thing LSU does have is a lot of current and former NFL millionaires as alumni as well. I'm not sure if they count as boosters. I know Honey Badger basically rebuilt their entire weight room and lounge and everything else like that. I don't know if they'll have to dig in their pockets to try to come up to get rid of them.
Yeah. All right, man. We're going to keep an eye on that story. No question about it.
All right. Well, take care and enjoy your show.
Thank you, Ryan Brooks. I appreciate it. LSU Tiger in the house. Thank you, sir. Great call. I think it's 60 million right now, Replica, but I think in about 14 more days it goes down. Larry, the GM, says 51 million. I think it's going to go down here in a little bit, Replica. I think. That's what I read. I don't know 100% if that's true or not. Larry, the GM, agrees with me. For the first time today, Larry, the GM, agrees with me. A moron could never lead the PATC community. Greg is not a moron. Really, Bean? Really? The PATC community is one game behind me in picking against the spread. I think we might have a moron leading morons. I think that's the situation. Look, I'm going to show you guys a tweet here, which I think says a lot. Stuart Mandel. I know a lot of you are not a fan of Stuart Mandel, but this is a very good tweet. The main impetus for the 12-team college football playoff is that it was the same brands every year. When you have 4 teams, you have the same, we're talking about the same teams. Next week, the 3 biggest games in the country involve Indiana, Army, BYU, and Arizona State. This is the greatness of the 12-team college football playoff. Yeah, the dream is alive for the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, to get 5 teams in the playoffs, but the dream is also alive for Indiana. The dream is also alive for Army, for BYU, for Arizona State, for SMU, for Miami. You can go right down the list. More teams have a dream that they can fulfill, possibly, maybe some of it is an extreme long shot, but we're sitting here on November 17th, and we're not talking about 6 teams or 7 teams. We're still talking about 25, 28 teams. That is the greatness of the college football 12-team playoffs. How is Oregon can rip through the Big Ten when they only gone unbeaten in the Pac twice? Well, Michael Smith, it's the same reason why Washington was able to rip through the Pac last year and not go through the Big Ten this year. Oregon was loaded up for this year. Absolutely loaded. I think everybody had Oregon finishing 1 and 2 in the Big Ten, top 5 in the nation. They were loaded up. And we could see that Washington was going to take a step back. Washington was going to take a step back even if they stayed in the Pac-12. USC was not going to be ready even if they stayed in the Pac-12. UCLA was not going to be ready even if they stayed in the Pac-12. It just so happens they joined the Big Ten. I don't think this 1 year thing, Oregon was going to be great no matter what conference they were going to be in. And I think Washington, USC, UCLA were going to struggle no matter what conference they're going to be in. I think the big point of going to the Big Ten is that USC is going to have to change their roster a little bit. They're going to have to get bigger. UCLA is going to have to change it up. But, no matter what conference Oregon was going to be, they were going to dominate. Absolutely dominate. Again, if you're new to the channel or if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to donate, help us support this channel through a donation. Hit the $sign where you make a comment. I'll get to super chat as quick as I possibly can. Keep your head on a swivel. We're going to be doing a show possibly early Monday. Possibly. We might not wait till Monday afternoon. Possibly doing a show early Monday, and I can't tell you why right now, but keep your head on a swivel. We could be doing a Monday morning show. No, it doesn't have anything to do with my personal schedule. It might have something to do with the college football world. So keep your head on a swivel tomorrow morning. Make sure you subscribe and have your notifications on. Turn them on. One other information here. Earlier, we talked about Julian Lewis, the number 2 player in the class of 2025, has decommitted from USC. Pete Thamel is announcing that Colorado recently has expressed he visited Georgia yesterday. He's gone to Colorado recently. He has expressed some interest in Indiana. He's the top available player in 2025 and the former number 1 player from 2026. But Julian Lewis reclassified, right? So he is a top 2 2025 high school recruit. So USC lost their quarterback commit, but breaking news, Corona, California Centennial quarterback Husan Longstreet has flipped his commitment from Texas A&M to USC. So USC lost the quarterback, but they knew they were going to lose Julian Lewis, and now they got a commitment from Husan Longstreet, flipping his commitment from Texas A&M to USC. I believe he's a high 4-star. Longstreet, a high 4-star. So that's a little bit of news that I did not get into earlier today. Kyle, this is somebody getting canned. We're going to have to find out. We're going to have to find out. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel. Kyle Visser is already poking and prodding on what may happen here. Tomorrow morning, we might be doing a show tomorrow morning instead of tomorrow afternoon. Okay, we're going to close it up. I want to thank everybody. We've been on the air for 1 hour and 40 minutes. Appreciate you all joining us on this Sunday late afternoon. A recap. The SEC dream scenario is still alive. BYU loses. Georgia wins. Oregon escapes. The number one Oregon Ducks escape. We did our projections and how it's going to end up. Our projections really haven't changed that much. Even did not change that much previous to last week and previous to the week before. Colorado number 4, Miami number 3, Texas number 2, the Buckeyes number 1, Oregon 5th, Penn State 6th, Notre Dame 7th. You get the message. If you missed our program, if you just joined us, go back and watch from the start. We projected the final playoff format rankings. Very interesting week coming up, and big games this weekend. Indiana, Ohio State, Army, Notre Dame. We're going to be doing 2 watch parties. We're going to try. We're going to do everything we can to do the noon Eastern watch party, Indiana, Ohio State, and I think 7:30 Eastern time, Army versus Notre Dame. But we got a lot of stuff to go through this week, so thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.